So as we think about that, James, we of course move to our second story this week on New World Next Week, episode 416 for July 30th, 2020. And it's really at the root of a lot of the issues and stories. It comes down to money. Gold's record price is all about dollar debasement. This is pretty good stuff from shiftgold.com. Gold broke its all-time price record, gold records, on Monday, and held above that throughout the day. And it's easier to understand gold's record-breaking move if you look at it from the other side of the equation. This article, I think, James, basically looks at what's happening right now and talks about the way economics have always worked and the way they try and, of course, force it to not work. The dollar is now at an all-time low compared to gold. In simple terms, the dollar is losing value, a direct result of the U.S. government borrowing and spending backed by the Federal Reserve money printing. Since the economy crashed, thanks to, of course, not a virus, it's thanks to the state's shutdowns in response to some strange virus. The federal government, of course, borrowed trillions of dollars for their so-called stimulus programs. The June budget deficit, bigger than all but 5 of the yearly deficits in American history. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve is monetizing a big old chunk of that debt through its government bond purchase program. In effect, buying up U.S. debt and paying for it with money printed out of thin air. And of course, how long can you get away with that? Longer than you think, apparently, but it is buying up all that U.S. debt. All this is, of course, creating inflation. Rising price of gold reflects inflationary pressure. And interesting part, James, this little nugget, which I think will, of course, lead us into our third and final segment on this episode. Even Deutsche Bank's chief U.S. economist projects the Federal Reserve's balance sheet will continue to explode, James. And it has been quite the buzz. There has been a lot of buzz around gold and just, again, precious metals and alternative so-called cryptocurrencies. A lot more this week recently.
Absolutely right. And let me give the hat tip to the author of this article, previous Corbett Report guest Michael Meharry. I think he puts the emphasis in the right place when he says this is about the devaluation of the dollar, because it's one of those things that is basic economic and monetary knowledge, but that is often precluded from the public's attention. Oh, wow, when oil prices are spiking suddenly, what's going on? Oh, could it have something to do with the fact that it's measured in dollars and the dollar is losing value? Well, how about when gold is suddenly bursting, hitting record or near record highs at the same time that crypto, as you say, is exploding at the moment and going back to parabolic levels? It's almost like the dollar is losing value, but you can't tell if you are measuring it within the confines of this post 1971 ending of the peg to the dollar peg to the gold, because it's just floating against all these other currencies, and the dollar isn't doing so bad against all these other currencies that are similarly devaluing. So you can't measure it against that. You have to measure it against something like gold, or like some of these other currencies that people are flocking to as they realize that the paper isn't worth the paper it's printed on, essentially. So that's kind of the broad picture of it, and it should be absolutely no surprise. Here's a recent headline that might have caught people's attention. Never before has so much stimulus been injected in the economy in a single quarter. Absolutely the most amount of injection of stimulus at a single time that has ever occurred in human history has just occurred in the past quarter. It's not going to let up. They're continuing. In fact, the Fed and Powell are now talking about they're going to have to outdove the doves, and they're going to have to throw even more out there to surprise the markets yet again so they can continue to prop them up. They're openly talking about this. So do you think this is the beginning of the end, at any rate, of the dollar cycle? Yes, it really is. This is absolutely world historical times, and the monetary base of this is an incredibly important part of that. And oh, by the way, at the same time, yes, they're limiting gold bullion production and distribution because of the pandemic. So the U.S. Mint has reduced the volume of gold and silver coins it's distributing to authorized purchasers as the coronavirus pandemic slows production. So there you go. There's another reason why gold is exploding right now. It's just another reason that perhaps keeping all of your eggs in the dollar basket at this time is probably not a wise long-term investment strategy.